Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming through the Earth Defense Station. He jumped up from his chair and ran to the command center where dozens of people were moving around with worried faces. The big screen at the front of the room showed something that made his heart stop beating for a moment. A massive alien ship was sitting just outside Earth's atmosphere. Lieutenant Mary Collins turned to him with wide eyes. "Sir, they sent us a message. It's not in any language we know, but our computers are working on it right now." Jake nodded and walked closer to the screen. The alien ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant metal snake, with strange lights running along its sides. He had been preparing for this day his whole life, but now that it was here, he felt scared. Admiral Lisa Turner's voice came through the speakers from Earth Command. "All stations, we have a situation. The alien vessel is not showing any signs of attack, but we need to be ready for anything. Captain Morrison, I need you to get your team ready." Jake looked around the room at his crew. These were good people who had trained hard for years. Now they would find out if all that training was worth anything. "Everyone listen up," he said in a loud voice. "We don't know what these aliens want, but we're going to be ready for whatever comes next." The computer made a beeping sound, and Dr. Richard Blake's face appeared on the screen. He was calling from his lab on Earth, where he worked with genetics and DNA. "Jake, you need to see this. We've decoded part of their message, and it's not good news." The message started playing on the big screen. The alien who appeared looked like a giant lizard walking on two legs. His skin was dark green with strange patterns, and his eyes were bright yellow. When he spoke, the computer translated his words into English. "People of Earth, I am Emperor Zethkar of the Zerathi Empire. For many years, we have watched your species from far away. We have studied your bodies, your minds, and your DNA. Now we have need of what you possess." Jake felt his hands getting cold as he listened to the alien's words. Something about the way the creatures spoke made him feel like they were all in terrible danger. The alien continued speaking. "Your species has something that we require for our survival. Your genetic material contains properties that our scientists have determined are necessary for our people to continue living. Therefore, by royal order of the Zerathi Empire, you will provide us with complete samples of your DNA and a sufficient number of your people for our breeding programs." Everyone in the room became very quiet. Jake could hear his own heart beating loud in his ears. The alien was talking about taking humans like they were animals. "You have one full cycle of your planet around your star to comply with this order. If you refuse, we will take what we need by force, and your species will cease to exist. This is not a request. This is a command from your new rulers." The message ended, and the room stayed silent for a long time. Finally, Admiral Turner's voice came through the speakers again. "All department heads report to Earth Command immediately. This is now a code red situation." Jake turned to his crew. "Collins, I want you to monitor that ship every second. If it moves even a little bit, I want to know about it. Rodriguez, start checking all our weapons and defense systems. Everyone else, stay alert and follow standard first contact procedures." As his team got to work, Jake called Dr. Blake on his personal communication device. "Richard, what do you think about all this? Is it even possible for them to use human DNA?" Dr. Blake's face looked very worried on the small screen. "Jake, I've been studying genetics for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this. If what they're saying is true, then they've been watching us and learning about our biology for a very long time. The fact that they think our DNA can help them means they know something about human genetics that we might not even know ourselves." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "How long do you think they've been watching us?" "Based on what they said in that message, probably decades, maybe longer. They seemed to know exactly what they wanted from us, which means they've had time to study us very carefully." The communication device made another noise, and President Helen Scott appeared on the screen. She was sitting in the emergency meeting room in Washington with other important government leaders around her. "Captain Morrison, Dr. Blake, I need both of you to come to Earth immediately. We're calling together everyone who might be able to help us understand this situation. We have less than a year to figure out what we're going to do, and right now, we don't have many options." Jake looked at the alien ship on the big screen. It was just sitting there, waiting. He wondered how many more ships like that one were hiding somewhere in space, ready to attack if humans said no to their demands. General Paul Hayes appeared next to President Scott on the screen. His face was red with anger. "These aliens think they can just show up and order us around like we're their property. Well, they're going to learn that humans don't give up without a fight." President Scott held up her hand to make the general stop talking. "We need to be smart about this, Paul. We don't know how powerful they are or how many ships they have. If we make the wrong choice, it could mean the end of everyone on Earth." Jake knew she was right. This was the biggest decision in human history, and they only had 1 year to make it. Either they gave the aliens what they wanted, or they prepared for a war that they might not be able to win. 3 months had passed since the alien message, and Jake Morrison was getting ready for the most dangerous mission of his life. He stood in the hangar bay looking at the Phoenix, a new stealth ship that Earth's best engineers had built in secret. The ship was smaller than most military vessels, but it was designed to be invisible to alien sensors. Lieutenant Collins walked up to him carrying a datapad. "Captain, we've finished loading all the scanning equipment. Dr. Blake says these devices should be able to record detailed information about alien technology without them knowing we're there." Jake nodded and looked at his team. Besides Collins, he had chosen Rodriguez for weapons systems, Danny White for engineering, and Lisa Park for communications. They were all good people who volunteered for this mission, even though they knew they might not come back alive. "Remember, everyone, we're not going out there to fight. Our job is to watch and learn. We need to find out how many ships they have and what kind of weapons they're carrying. Stay quiet, stay hidden, and don't take any unnecessary risks." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Blake was working late in his laboratory when he made a discovery that changed everything. He had been studying some strange metal fragments that a mining ship found near Jupiter. At first, he thought they were just space rocks, but when he looked closer, he found something that made his blood run cold. The metal pieces had tiny marks cut into them that looked like alien writing. Even worse, there were traces of human DNA mixed in with the metal. Dr. Blake called Admiral Turner immediately. "Admiral, you need to get down here right now. I found proof that the aliens have been doing experiments on humans for years. These metal fragments came from some kind of alien laboratory, and there's human genetic material all over them." Admiral Turner arrived 20 minutes later with a team of security guards. When she saw what Dr. Blake had discovered, her face became very pale. "How long do you think they've been taking our people?" "Based on the age of these fragments, at least 10 years, maybe more." "Admiral, there are human beings out there somewhere, being used as test subjects. We have to find them." At the same time, Commander Kate Sullivan was meeting with resistance leaders in cities all around the world. Kate was a brilliant military strategist who had realized something important about the alien demands. They weren't just asking for DNA samples. They wanted living humans to use in breeding programs. Kate stood in front of a group of 50 people in an old warehouse in New York City. These were soldiers, scientists, engineers, and ordinary citizens who had decided they would rather fight than become slaves. "Listen carefully," Kate said. "The aliens think they can treat us like animals in a zoo. They want to take our people and use them to make babies that will serve their empire. But they made one big mistake. They gave us a whole year to get ready for them." A young engineer named Bobby Chen raised his hand. "Commander, what can we do against ships that big? Our best weapons probably can't even scratch their armor." Kate smiled. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that's going to help us win. We can't beat them with big ships and powerful weapons, so we're not going to try. We're going to use the one thing they don't understand about humans. We're going to be unpredictable. While Kate was building the resistance, other humans were making different choices. Marcus Webb was a rich businessman who owned several large companies. When the aliens first arrived, Marcus had been scared like everyone else. But after 3 months of thinking about it, he decided that fighting was pointless. Marcus sat in his expensive office talking on a secure communication line with someone he wasn't supposed to be talking to. The voice on the other end spoke perfect English, but Marcus knew it belonged to an alien. Mr. Webb, your cooperation has been noted by the Empire. When the transition occurs, humans who helped us will be treated better than those who chose to resist. Marcus looked out his window at the city below. Millions of people were down there, living their normal lives, not knowing that their world was about to change forever. I understand, but you have to promise me that my family will be safe. I'm only doing this to protect the people I care about. Your family will be given special status in the new order. Continue to provide us with information about human military preparations, and you will be rewarded. Marcus ended the call and put his head in his hands. He told himself he was doing the right thing, but deep inside, he felt sick about betraying his own species. Back in space, Captain Morrison and his team were discovering just how much trouble Earth was really in. The Phoenix had been flying through the outer solar system for 2 weeks, staying hidden and recording everything they could find. Captain, you need to see this, Rodriguez whispered from his station. I'm picking up signals from at least 12 different alien installations. They're not just watching us. They've built bases throughout our solar system. Jake felt his heart sink. The aliens hadn't just arrived 3 months ago. They had been preparing for this invasion for years. Collins, are you getting good recordings of all this? Yes, sir. Dr. Blake is going to be very interested in what we're finding. These bases aren't just for watching. Some of them look like they're designed for holding prisoners. Lisa Park turned around from her communication station with a worried expression. Captain, I'm picking up a transmission between 2 of the alien bases. Our computer is translating it, but you're not going to like what they're saying. The alien voices came through the speakers in broken English. The human specimens in Facility 7 are responding well to the genetic modifications. Emperor Zethkar will be pleased with our progress. How many subjects do we currently have in all facilities? 237. All are healthy and producing the genetic material we require for further study. Jake closed his eyes and tried to control his anger. There were over 200 humans being held prisoner and experimented on by these aliens, and most people on Earth didn't even know they were missing. We're going back to Earth right now, Jake said quietly. Admiral Turner needs to know about this immediately, and when we get back, we're going to start planning a rescue mission. Danny White looked up from his engineering station. Sir, there's something else. I've been analyzing the energy signatures from these alien bases, and I think I found a weakness. Their power systems all seem to be connected somehow. If we could disrupt one of them, it might affect the others too. Jake nodded. For the first time in months, he felt a small bit of hope. The aliens were powerful, but they weren't perfect. Humans just had to be smart enough to find their weak spots and brave enough to use them. Dr. Blake stood in his laboratory staring at the test results that would change everything humans thought they knew about themselves. For weeks, he and his team had been studying the alien genetic samples that Captain Morrison brought back from his secret mission. What they found was so surprising that Blake had to run the tests 3 times to make sure they were correct. Dr. Amy Foster walked into the lab carrying a cup of coffee and looking very tired. She had been working for 18 hours straight, trying to understand the alien DNA structure. Richard, please tell me you found something useful in all this data. Blake turned around with a strange expression on his face. Amy, what would you Say if I told you that human genetics aren't just compatible with alien biology, but that we're actually superior to them in almost every way that matters. Amy almost dropped her coffee cup. I would say that's impossible. These aliens have technology that's thousands of years ahead of ours. How could we be genetically superior to them? Blake pointed to the computer screen showing complex genetic charts. Look at this. The Zirathi have incredibly advanced logical processing abilities. Their brains can calculate mathematical problems that would take our best computers hours to solve. But look at this section here. He pointed to a part of the genetic code that was highlighted in red. This is where humans store emotional capacity, creativity, and adaptability. In Zirathi genetics, these sections have been completely removed, not damaged or weakened, but deliberately cut out of their DNA. Amy looked closer at the screen. You're saying they did this to themselves on purpose? Exactly. Sometime in their past, probably thousands of years ago, they decided that emotions and creativity were weaknesses that needed to be eliminated. They genetically engineered themselves to be perfectly logical and efficient. But why would they want our emotional genetics if they thought emotions were bad? Blake sat down in his chair and rubbed his tired eyes. Because they're dying. Amy, their immune systems are failing because they don't have the genetic diversity that comes from emotional decision-making and creative problem-solving. They made themselves too perfect, and now they can't adapt to new diseases or environmental changes. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was in Admiral Turner's office, reviewing the intelligence they had gathered about alien communication systems. What they had learned was both frightening and encouraging. Admiral, we intercepted dozens of messages between alien facilities over the past month. The good news is that we can understand most of what they're saying now. The bad news is what they're actually planning to do to us. Admiral Turner looked at the translated messages on her computer screen. Captain, these reports talk about turning humans into a permanent slave species. They don't just want our DNA, they want to control our entire civilization. Morrison nodded, grimly. But there's something else in these messages that's very interesting. The aliens keep talking about things they call chaotic variables in human behavior. They seem frustrated that they can't predict what humans will do in certain situations. What kind of situations? Emergency situations where humans have to make quick decisions without having all the information. The aliens say their computer models can't account for what they call irrational human responses to danger. Admiral Turner smiled for the first time in weeks. You mean our ability to panic and do stupid things is actually confusing their advanced technology? It looks that way. Their computers are designed to predict logical behavior, but humans don't always act logically, especially when we're scared, or angry, or trying to protect someone we love. At the same time, Dr. Blake was making another important discovery in his lab. While studying the alien technology samples, he found that their quantum processors operated on very specific frequencies that could be disrupted by certain types of electromagnetic interference. Amy, come look at this. I've been testing the alien computer chips, and they're incredibly sensitive to electromagnetic pulses in a very narrow frequency range. Amy walked over to his workstation, where he had an alien device connected to several human monitoring machines. What frequency are you talking about? This is the interesting part. The frequency that disrupts their technology is almost exactly the same as the electromagnetic patterns that human brains produce during moments of intense emotion. Amy stared at him. Are you saying that human emotions can actually damage alien technology? Not just damage it. These patterns can completely shut down their quantum processors. Watch this. Blake pressed a button that played a recording of human brain waves during a moment of extreme fear. The alien device immediately stopped working and started making strange noises. Now look at this, Blake said as he played a recording of human brain patterns during a moment of great joy and creativity. The alien device not only shut down, but some of its components actually started smoking. Amy couldn't believe what she was seeing. Richard, if this is true, then human emotions aren't just compatible with alien technology. Our feelings are actually toxic to their machines. Exactly. And here's the best part. The aliens have removed emotional capacity from their own genetics, which means they can't produce these disruptive frequencies anymore. They made themselves immune to the very thing that could save them from genetic extinction. But they also made themselves vulnerable to the one weapon they can't understand or defend against. Back at Resistance headquarters, Commander Sullivan was meeting with leaders from around the world to share this new information. The room was full of generals, scientists, and political leaders who had been waiting for some kind of good news. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kate said as she stood in front of a large screen showing Dr. Blake's research results, "we now know why the aliens want our genetics so badly, and we also know how to beat them." General Hayes leaned forward in his chair. "Commander, are you telling us that our emotions are weapons? I'm telling you that everything the aliens see as valuable about humanity is also everything that makes us dangerous to them. They want our genetic diversity, our adaptability, and our creativity, but those same traits make us unpredictable. Enemies who can disable their technology just by feeling strongly about something." President Scott spoke up from her seat at the head of the table. "What exactly are you proposing, Commander?" Kate smiled. "I'm proposing that we stop trying to think like them and start acting like ourselves. Instead of building bigger guns and stronger armor, we're going to build weapons that turn human emotions into electromagnetic weapons. Instead of trying to outthink their computers, we're going to be so irrational and unpredictable that their computers can't keep up with us." Dr. Blake's voice came through the communication system from his laboratory. "Madam President, I've been working on prototypes for devices that can amplify and focus human emotional brain patterns. If we can get enough people working together, we might be able to create an electromagnetic pulse powerful enough to disable their entire fleet." Everyone in the room started talking at once. For the first time since the aliens arrived, humans had found something that gave them hope. They weren't just going to survive this invasion. They were going to win it by being exactly what the aliens thought made them weak. 6 weeks remained before the alien deadline, and every human on Earth was working harder than they had ever worked before. Commander Sullivan stood in the main training facility watching hundreds of pilots practice flying in patterns that would have been considered crazy just months earlier. "Remember," she called out to the pilots through the communication system, "the aliens expect you to fly logically and efficiently. So don't do that. Change direction for no reason. Speed up when you should slow down. Make choices that don't make sense even to yourselves." Captain Morrison was working with a group of 20 pilots who had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. These men and women would fly directly at the alien ships using the new emotional amplifier weapons that Dr. Blake had developed. "Listen carefully," Morrison said to his team. "These weapons don't work like regular guns or missiles. They work by taking your strongest emotions and turning them into electromagnetic pulses that can shut down alien technology. The stronger you feel something, the more powerful the weapon becomes." A young pilot named Tony Garcia raised his hand. "Captain, what if we can't feel emotions strongly enough during combat? What if we get too scared or too focused on just staying alive?" Morrison smiled. "Tony, that's exactly the point. Fear is an emotion. So is anger, love, determination, and even confusion. The aliens removed all of these feelings from themselves because they thought emotions made people weak and inefficient. But emotions are what make humans human, and now they're going to be our strongest weapons." Meanwhile, Dr. Blake was working day and night in his expanded laboratory with a team of 50 scientists and engineers. They had built dozens of prototype emotional amplifier devices, and each one was different because each one had to match the specific brain patterns of the person who would use it. Dr. Foster walked up to him, carrying a datapad full of test results. "Richard, We've completed personality and emotional testing on 500 volunteers. The devices are working, but we've discovered something interesting about which emotions work best against alien technology. Blake looked up from the device. He was calibrating. What did you find? Individual emotions like fear or anger can disrupt their technology for a few seconds. But when people feel protective emotions about other people they care about, the effect is much stronger and lasts much longer. You mean the weapons work better when people are fighting to protect someone else, rather than just fighting for themselves? Amy nodded. Exactly. Love, friendship, family bonds, even love for pets or favorite places. These emotions create brain patterns that are extremely toxic to alien quantum processors. Dr. Blake thought about this discovery. Amy, that might explain why the aliens don't understand humans. They removed love and friendship from their genetics because they thought those emotions made people inefficient. But those are the exact emotions that make humans fight harder and longer than any logical being would. Across the planet, millions of people were preparing for war in ways that had never been tried before. Instead of just learning how to use weapons and follow orders, they were learning how to feel emotions more intensely and how to work together in ways that would confuse alien computer systems. In China, factory workers were building emotional amplifier devices while thinking about their families. In Europe, soldiers were training to fight while focusing on their love for their home countries. In Africa, pilots were learning to fly while concentrating on their determination to stay free. But not everyone was working together. Marcus Webb sat in his office talking to his alien contact again, and this time he was more worried than before. The humans are preparing something that your computers might not be able to predict, Marcus said quietly into his secure communication device. They're building weapons that use human emotions somehow. I don't understand how it works, but the scientists seem very excited about it. The alien voice on the other end sounded concerned for the first time. Explain what you mean by weapons that use emotions. I've heard them talking about devices that turn human brain patterns into electromagnetic pulses. They think these pulses can damage your technology. There was a long pause before the alien responded. Mr. Webb, this information is very valuable. The Empire will increase your family's protection status in return for more details about these emotional weapons. Marcus felt sick to his stomach, but he continued talking. I'll try to get more information, but the military is being very careful about security. Most people don't know exactly how these weapons work. After ending the call, Marcus sat alone in his office, wondering if he was making the right choice. He had started working with the aliens because he thought resistance was hopeless, but now he wasn't so sure. The humans seemed confident about something, and that confidence was starting to make him doubt his decision to collaborate. Meanwhile, President Scott was meeting with world leaders to make the final decision about how humanity would respond to the alien ultimatum. The meeting included presidents, prime ministers, and military leaders from every major country on Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, President Scott said, as she stood at the head of the conference table. In 42 days, the aliens will expect our answer. Dr. Blake and Commander Sullivan believe we can win a war against them using these new emotional weapons. But if we're wrong, it could mean the end of human civilization. The President of Brazil spoke first. Madam President, what are the alternatives? If we give them what they want, we become a slave species. Our children and grandchildren will be bred like animals for their genetic experiments. The Prime Minister of Japan nodded in agreement. Our scientists have confirmed Dr. Blake's research. Human emotions do appear to be disruptive to alien technology, but we're still talking about fighting an enemy with thousands of years of technological advancement. General Hayes stood up and looked around the room. With respect to everyone here, we're not just talking about technology anymore. We're talking about what it means to be human. These aliens want to take away everything that makes us who we are. They want our creativity, our adaptability, and our emotions, but they want to control how we use those gifts. President Scott nodded. The question is not whether we can win this war. The question is whether we can afford to lose it. If we surrender, humans will never be free again. If we fight and lose, at least we'll die as free people. Commander Sullivan appeared on the communication screen from military headquarters. Madam President, I've been coordinating with resistance cells in all the major cities. We have over 2 million volunteers ready to use the emotional amplifier weapons. Captain Morrison has trained 300 pilots to fly the new emotional disruption patterns. Dr. Blake has built enough devices to equip our entire military force. What about the aliens' bases that Captain Morrison discovered in our solar system? We're planning coordinated strikes on all 12 installations simultaneously. If we can rescue the human prisoners and destroy their forward operating bases, it will force them to attack us directly, instead of being able to observe and plan. President Scott looked around the room at the faces of the world's leaders. I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor of rejecting the alien ultimatum and preparing for war. Every person in the room raised their hand. Then it's decided. Commander Sullivan, begin final preparations immediately. In 6 weeks, we're going to show these aliens what happens when you threaten human freedom. As the meeting ended, President Scott stayed behind to record a message that would be broadcast to every human on Earth. My fellow humans, she began. In 6 weeks, we will face the greatest challenge in our species' history. But we will face it together, and we will face it as free people who refuse to bow down to anyone who would make us slaves. The day of the deadline arrived with clear skies over Earth, but space was filled with the largest alien fleet that humans had ever seen. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the space station, looking at the sensors that showed more than 400 Zerathi warships surrounding Earth like a metal storm cloud. Emperor Zethkar's massive flagship appeared on the main communication screen, and his yellow eyes stared directly at the human defenders. People of Earth, your time has ended. You will now submit to the will of the Zerathi Empire or face complete destruction. President Scott appeared on screens throughout the human fleet and on every communication device on Earth. Emperor Zethkar, humanity rejects your demands. We will never submit to slavery, and we will never surrender our freedom to anyone. The alien emperor's face showed no emotion as he responded. Then you have chosen extinction. Begin the attack. The first wave of alien ships moved toward Earth with weapons that could destroy entire cities. But as they got closer, something unexpected began to happen. Captain Morrison and his team of specially trained pilots launched from hidden bases around the solar system in ships equipped with Dr. Blake's emotional amplifier weapons. Remember everyone, Morrison said to his pilots through the communication system. Don't think about the size of their ships or how powerful their weapons are. Think about the people you're protecting. Think about your families, your friends, and your home. As the human pilots flew toward the alien fleet, they focused their minds on the emotions that made them most human. Tony Garcia thought about his little sister back on Earth, who was probably scared and hiding. Lisa Park remembered her grandmother who had taught her that freedom was worth any sacrifice. Danny White focused on his anger at the aliens for taking human prisoners and experimenting on them. The emotional amplifier devices began to work immediately as the human pilots got close to the alien ships. The quantum processors that controlled Zerathi technology started to malfunction. Navigation systems failed, weapons targeting became erratic, and communication between alien ships was disrupted. It's working, Morrison shouted as he watched 3 alien ships lose control and crash into each other. All pilots, increase emotional intensity and maintain attack formation. But the real battle was just beginning. Emperor Zethkar realized that human technology was somehow interfering with his ships. So he ordered his fleet to attack Earth directly with planet-killing weapons that didn't require computer targeting. On Earth, Dr. Blake was coordinating the largest emotional amplifier experiment in human history. In every major city, Thousands of people were connected to devices that would combine their emotional brain patterns into one massive electromagnetic pulse. Citizens of Earth, Blake's voice came through every speaker on the planet. In 30 seconds, I want everyone to think about what Earth means to you. Think about every person you love, every place that makes you happy, every memory that makes you glad to be human. Amy Foster watched the readouts as millions of human minds focused together on their love for their home world. Richard, the power levels are going beyond anything we tested. This might be strong enough to reach every alien ship in the solar system. Blake nodded and pressed the activation button. For humanity. The emotional pulse that erupted from Earth was like nothing the universe had ever experienced. The combined love, hope, determination, and protective instincts of 4 billion humans created an electromagnetic wave that spread out from Earth at the speed of light. When the wave hit the Zerathi fleet, the results were immediate and devastating. Every quantum processor in every alien ship overloaded simultaneously. Navigation systems crashed, life support failed, weapons became useless, and communication networks went completely silent. Emperor Zethkar watched in horror as his mighty fleet became helpless metal shells floating in space. His own flagship was losing power, and he couldn't understand what was happening. Admiral Korthovel, report. What kind of weapon did the humans use against us? His admiral's voice came through the failing communication system with confusion and fear. My emperor, there was no weapon. The humans simply expressed their emotions very intensely, and our technology could not withstand the electromagnetic interference. That's impossible. Emotions are biological weaknesses that we eliminated from our species thousands of years ago. How can feelings destroy quantum processors? But Captain Morrison wasn't finished. While the alien fleet was disabled, he led a team of rescue ships to the hidden alien bases where human prisoners were being held. Using smaller emotional amplifier devices, they were able to shut down the security systems and free more than 200 humans who had been captured over the years. The rescued humans told horrible stories about genetic experiments and forced breeding programs, but they also brought valuable information about alien technology and plans for conquering other worlds. Meanwhile, Marcus Webb was sitting in his office watching the battle through his window when alien security forces arrived to arrest him. But their technology had been disabled by the emotional pulse, so their weapons and communication devices weren't working. Mr. Webb, the lead alien, said in broken English, "You will come with us to the flagship for evacuation." Marcus looked at the helpless aliens and realized that he had chosen the wrong side. "No, I don't think I will. You see, I'm human, and humans don't abandon their home world." The aliens tried to force him to come with them, but without their technology, they were no match for human determination. Marcus and his security guards were able to capture the alien team and turn them over to Earth authorities. As the battle continued, Emperor Zethkar made one final attempt to destroy Earth. His flagship still had enough power for one planet-killing blast, and he was determined to make humans pay for their resistance. But Captain Morrison had anticipated this possibility. He flew his ship directly at the alien flagship while focusing every emotion he had ever felt into his amplifier device. His love for Earth, his friendship with his crew, his anger at alien cruelty, and his determination to protect human freedom created an electromagnetic pulse so powerful that it overloaded every system on the enemy's ship. The flagship began to break apart as Morrison's ship crashed into its main power core. But in those final moments, Emperor Zethkar finally understood what his species had lost when they removed emotions from their genetics. "You fight not for logic or efficiency," the dying emperor said to Morrison through the communication system. "You fight for love. We thought love made you weak, but it makes you stronger than we ever imagined." Morrison smiled as his ship's emergency systems activated. "That's right, Your Majesty. And that's why you could never understand us or defeat us." The explosion that destroyed the alien flagship created a chain reaction that disabled the remaining ships in the Zirithi fleet. Without their technology, the aliens were forced to surrender or retreat to their home worlds. In the days that followed, human teams worked to repair the alien ships and send the survivors back to their empire with a message. Earth was now under human protection, and any species that threatened human freedom would face the same fate as the Zirithi fleet. Dr. Blake and his team began studying captured alien technology to prepare for future threats. They discovered that the Zirithi Empire had been planning to attack dozens of other worlds, but now those plans would have to be abandoned. Commander Sullivan was promoted to Admiral and put in charge of Earth's new space defense force, using modified alien ships and emotional amplifier weapons. Humans began exploring beyond their solar system not as potential victims, but as protectors of freedom throughout the galaxy. President Scott addressed the world in a speech that would be remembered for generations. Today we learned that our greatest strengths are not our weapons or our technology, but our capacity to love, to hope, and to sacrifice for each other. The aliens wanted to take these qualities from us because they knew these emotions make us powerful beyond their understanding. Captain Morrison recovered from his injuries and was given command of humanity's first interstellar exploration ship, as he prepared for humanity's first journey to distant stars. He thought about Emperor Zethkar's final words. The aliens had been right about one thing. Human emotions did make them unpredictable and sometimes inefficient. But those same emotions also made them creative, adaptable, and willing to fight for things that couldn't be measured or calculated. As Earth began its new role as a defender of freedom in the galaxy, humans finally understood that their feelings weren't weaknesses to be overcome, but gifts that made them unique among all the species in the universe.